Benjamin Holmgren, great to see you.
Good to see you, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Welcome to the Heave podcast. When we first started this, I called it Bet on Yourself. And not all guests, I would say, kind of fit under that umbrella. But you, having started your own company, I would put back under the Bet on Yourself umbrella. So it's great to have you on. Would love to, we'll talk through a bunch of stuff. But congratulations on the new company, and let's get into it.
Thank you. I love that too, by the way. That's that has proved to be the case for myself. So good stuff. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It initially came from a friend who's become a friend of mine now, a customer of ours, who when I was trying to decide if I was going to start the company. We were just talking through the original idea, and I'm sure as you've probably had discussions with others. And he looked at me one day. He said, sometimes you just got to bet on yourself, and pretty wise words and what I needed to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like at least from my angle that's a bet that's paying off. So, well done.
Well, we're working on it. Thanks. So we first met around last year when you were with BuildWit for the Dirt Summit. Really enjoyed getting to know you and meeting you and everything. But I would love to start with your background in the industry. You've worked in different capacities. Very interesting. I know you've operated equipment yourself, working as a contractor, and I would just love to kind of learn from you, how you found your way into the industry, and then the different stops along the way that have built your experience.
Yeah, I'll start with a quick story, I guess, because you don't need every detail, but maybe this story helps illustrate. I've come to learn that not everyone is the same as me. We all have different experiences and backgrounds, so maybe filling in and coloring in a little bit might be helpful. So when I was 12, my older brother, he's 14, he was almost 15, and he worked for this farmer, and the farmer would come pick him up in the morning and bring him out to his farm, and they would work. One day, my brother was sick. He woke up with a stomach bug or whatever. And so the farmer showed up and was like, "Hey, where's my worker?" And my mom was like, "Hey, do you want to take my next kid?" He's like, "How old is he?" He's like, "He's 12." And farmer's like, "Can he drive a dump truck?" And she's like, "I don't know. I guess you'll find out." So I go to work with the farmer. And I end up driving dump truck, and the project is he's running this old excavator on his property, and he loads the dump truck, and I drive the old international dump truck, and I go dump the stumps in the burn pile. Then I go back and get a new one. It was all very, very low key, farming property, but that's what I did all day. And that was at 12, and that was like easily the biggest thing that I'd done up until that point. I drove a lawnmower, here I am, driving this international dump truck. I felt like the king, And
you could reach the pedal and see out the windshield at 12?
It was a trip, but we made it work. And I remember at one point I jumped out of the truck. It was very low key, flat ground, all this stuff, pretty low risk. But I jumped out of the truck, I was one or two steps down, 12-year-old kid. I jumped down and I start walking away. I'm going to, grab some water or something. And the dump truck starts rolling away, ever so slowly. And I quickly jump back up and realize I hadn't put on the parking brake. It's like, oh, okay, lesson learned there.
At 12, you should have known that.
Yeah, exactly. But since then...
Rookie mistake.
Yes, total rookie. Ever since then, though, I've been worked in construction or something construction related. I've had quite a few different jobs since 12 years old, but I worked at a Bobcat dealership. I worked in landscaping for 4 years. Is where we did installs. So running ditch witch and mini excavator and skid steer a lot. And Then I worked for myself for a little bit. I ended up getting into construction sales. So I would fly around the country and sell instruments to like concrete contractors. So like on job sites all over the country. And then I worked for another contractor and eventually ended up at BuildWit, which is where we met. And I worked there for 3 years. And then this winter, I ended up going on my own, working for contractors directly as a kind of contract consultant. And we'll get into that more. But that's I've had several different jobs, but they've all been related to construction, and more specifically, kind of dirt and concrete it's all my my experience. Like small dirt, but dirt nonetheless.
What do you think that is? The draw to it. I mean, did you have a fascination with it, or is it simply just that day where you're pulled out of the house and thrown into it that kind of sparked the interest? Do you know?
As long as, like, as far back as I can remember, including the day I told you about as a 12-year-old, I've always loved excavators, chainsaws, sawmills. Like I really enjoy that stuff, and I've spent time doing all of it. Also worth noting, like everybody I know or everybody I knew growing up, that's all anybody did. Like I grew up in absolute blue collar construction. My dad, home builder, my brothers all work in construction, my cousin, like everybody works in construction that I know in different trades. But I always had and always have had more of a attraction to iron and moving dirt and those sorts of things. So it's all been like, I haven't been a pipe layer 20 feet underground putting sewer line together, but I've had my run and it's been good.
And did you grow up in the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I live in Washington now. I was born in Michigan, but then as a kid we moved out here to Washington State, and I've been here since. Did a short stint in North Carolina and kind of got a little bit of the Southeast, but yeah, primarily Northwest.
What was one of the things that interested me was your stint at the Bobcat dealer selling machines. What was that like, and how did you end up there?
That was at 17 years old. So I was a homeschool kid. I graduated early because when you're homeschooled, you can do whatever you want. And at 17, I told my parents I was going to like pack my Jeep and I was going to move out. And I moved. A bunch of my friends had moved to Williston, North Dakota in 2011, 12. So it was like the heat of the oil boom, or a heat at least, you know. Right. And I moved out there and I spent 4 or 5 months there. But first day, like I showed up, I got on my Jeep, drove out to Williston, started like looking at different places that I could apply. And I was 17. I wasn't even 18 yet. So like getting on a rig was an impossibility unless I really kind of lied. And I suppose I was smart enough to know I shouldn't be doing that. Also, like I'm 140 pounds soaking wet and being, spending time in a derrick or as a rig hand or something is just probably a fool's errand for somebody like me. So I ended up going to the Bobcat dealership. I walked in and the guy was like, can you work? And I was like, yes, sir. And he's like, Roger that. We'll see you in the morning. And I had a job. And I kind of did all things rental and kind of helped the service guys and whatever. It was a fun, interesting experience. Obviously, I was just a kid finding my way, but it was good. It was good fun.
Very cool. And then you ended up at BuildWit. What was that? Did you know about BuildWit before? Did you apply there? Were you recruited there? How did you find your way to that company?
Yeah, I was absolutely not looking. Actually, I just started with a contractor. I went in as their GM and was starting to get all the people rowing in the right direction. They were small, on the smaller side, 15, 20 guys, but we were rocking and rolling. And then one Sunday afternoon, I got a call from Aaron Witt, and he and I had kind of connected. I'd met him on a couple job sites when it worked and whatever. And we'd struck it off well for the probably previous year or two. And then he called and was like, "Hey, I think we have something for you." And I'm like, at the time they were 30 people and mostly media focused. And I was like, "Okay, what, I'll hear you out, 'cause I know you, what are you thinking?" And he's like, I don't know. Come figure it out. And that led to 3 years of just that. Like he made good on his promise. I definitely spent my time trying to figure it out and trying to be useful wherever was possible, and had many adventures with the Build With team. I'm still a big fan and a friend of many people there.
Sure. And from the outside, it seems like the core focus was, educating people on the industry, like telling the stories of contractors. Is that fair?
Yeah. That's where it started. And then some of the projects that I was involved in, I helped get their customer success team up and rolling for their new training software. And then, as you and I met, Alex, the Dirt World Summit last year, I was a player in that. Pretty much, one of the small team that kind of got broken off to go and execute that. So we had to build the event, and we had to get the people to come to the event, and that was my job.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it seems it was a great event. We're going to be a part of it again this year. It was an impressive, for a first time event. It was incredibly impressive for how well it went off and the attendance. So kudos to their team.
100%. I will tell you too, it was, and this is just on a personal level, I have never had an experience like that. I sweated like what you don't see. You were my customer at the time.
Right.
And we worked through the deal and we made it happen. And I sold to a bunch of people who were the vendors, other booths and things. And then I sold to a bunch of contractors. It was a weird deal. I flew to Houston for the event. We got there a day or two early. I walked in and one of the guys who was kind of like my counterpart, he was like, "Hey, come here, come check this out." Takes me up. We go into the room, and there are people frantically running around setting up like the stage and all the banners and all this stuff. And there was 800 seats with these tables. And he was like, "All right, this section's you, this section's me," Like this was our effort, And it was like not like he and I sold the whole thing, but we did by far a lion's share. And it was like it was so tangible and real, like impossible to ignore or deny. And it was like, wow, it was a crazy deal.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I was listening to you talk about the event, maybe on someone else's podcast, and I never heard it talked about in these terms, but you talked about the risk of putting on an event like that. And I think, we've all been to like trade shows, we've all been to associations, and as an attendee, you never think of it in those terms of there's risk taken on by the host. And what does that mean? That means, hey, we've signed up to bring in X amount of people. Hey, we're signing up to bring you the hotel and the facility, this amount of business, this amount of rooms. Like you're doing a block. Like if you don't end up getting that much, I'm sure you're on the hook for it. So that is the risk that you're taking. And it was interesting. It's the first time I've ever heard it discussed in those terms. It was kind of eye-opening for me, like I said, because you don't think about it in those terms for the host company.
Right. Now, I would be careful to share in detail, but just use your imagination. If you know how much a house costs, that's a good way to start. Like that's what you pay for the room block, and that's what you pay for one or two of the speakers, and that's what you pay for just on and on and on. That's it's a multi 7-figure event. So it's a huge bet. And what we had to bank on, especially for a first time, we had to bank on sales. We had to bank on selling vendors and selling attendees. And that, while it was obviously shared amongst the team, I also like wore the sales hat, and that's what I was doing to make this thing happen. And so I think part of the reason that it was so fulfilling to see it come together was that what you didn't see was the almost full year, every single day, grind, call, email, text, go on social media, find people. And Alex, I know you know this from your own experience in starting things. It very much felt like we were supported. I was supported, but it was still on me for a year. And then I think that's what maybe made it so meaningful to go in the room as they were prepping, as I told you, and see like, oh, these whatever hundreds and hundreds of people are my contribution and responsibility, and it worked. It's like, it's pretty rad, man.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to see it from the beginning to the end. And so, I'm sure. So you joined BuildWit early on. You explained how you basically had to figure things out. What was the main motivation then to take the plunge and start your own company, Kestaa?
So for anyone listening, it's probably worth noting so we finished the big event that I just mentioned. The summit, I worked a year on that. We finished, I flew home Friday night. Saturday we went to a wedding, and then Sunday my wife and I got on a plane and we went to St. George, Utah, which, by the way, it's an amazing place. You ever been to St. George?
No, I've seen plenty of pictures, and it's somewhere I desperately want to go.
Yes. Okay, keep the desire alive, because it's just fabulous. So we go to St. George. 2 days later, as we're supposed to be going out to Zion and go hiking for the day, I woke up and I'd had a stroke in the night, didn't realize it, couldn't see, was like falling over. We drove over to the hospital and got confirmed, like, yeah, this is what's up. It's the craziest thing in the world. Like, I'm 29 years old, never once expected that would be the case, but there I was. And then that really kind of messed with my head. We flew home. I was super quiet, like trying to get my bearings, mind racing all the time, like, but not really saying anything. It was a weird deal, like I could walk, but it was just strange. 10 days after that happened, my wife went into the hospital at 23 weeks pregnant with number 7, and baby was trying to get out. And so she was on strict bed rest, like laid down totally flat for the first 2 days, trying to keep baby in, pumped her full of magnesium and all this stuff. And that led to 3 weeks of us in the hospital. She didn't leave the bed barely for 3 weeks. Baby came at 26 weeks, which is 14 weeks before they're supposed to come. And baby Stina came. She was 1 pound, 13 ounces, just the tiniest kid in the world. It seemed like to me. And then we spent, 3, almost 4 months in the hospital with her, just letting her grow up, and had our kind of roller coaster ride there too. So why am I telling you all this? I told you the story of going through the summit and doing all of that. I run ultra marathons and stuff, and I like to stay active, and I like to push myself and see what's possible. And I had been thinking about doing my own thing for a long time. Like, and as I got into, we started doing this big event, I had a mission. I'm like, I got to go get this thing done. And I really try not to quit what I start. I want to see something through, especially something so physical and something with a deadline like that. And so I was like, I'm going to execute this. We'll go, even if it stings, and then we'll reassess after. And then it was just like our whole life fell apart immediately after that, like the next 2 days later. And so I spent 2 months in the hospital kind of thinking about the future, and I started getting I was going to therapy, getting a lot of my kind of mental agility back and stuff. And it was like, I think it might be the worst time in the world, but also that might be the reason why to do it. And Alex Hormozy talks about this, and I think that really helped me clarify why now. The question is why now, when we have all this terrible stuff that's happened, and I have heart surgery that I have to go get because that's why I had my stroke, all this stuff. And it was like, if I can make this work right now, then I can absolutely make it work when life is normal. And you talked about at the beginning about how like the self-confidence or the betting on yourself. It was like, I have to. And I'm very thankful to say that it's, due to lots of good people, good customers in the dirt world and beyond. Like, it's working. Things are working. Very, very thankful.
It's incredible. I mean, do you think that if you didn't have the stroke, you wouldn't have made the journey yet?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. All I know is I sat in the hospital for months and thought and stewed and tried to figure out what the right answer was, and I didn't know. And it was like, finally, it was like, what do I want? And it was like, I want to do my own thing for my reasons. Like, I want to do this, and that's what we did.
Is there part of your personality? It seems like you need like an insane challenge at all times. That has to be
maybe that's what it
a pretty exhausting
categorically insane.
thing. Yeah. What I was saying was, when you start a company, you end up networking with others that have like circumstances, and you meet other founders. I don't think I've ever met anyone who started it after like having their own hospital stint, and then what you went through with your family, the premature birth and just everything kind of lining up against you. That is a 1 in a million scenario.
Yeah, we talked about self-confidence. I keep coming back to that because it seems like there's a fine line between self-confidence and being confident in myself, let's say, and being just delusional and stupid. and I suppose the bet on myself was that I know many good people and I know how to solve a few problems, and we'll talk about that stuff. But
sure,
it was more like I was confident that I knew enough people and I knew that I could help them. That was the confidence versus delusion. Like, I'm going to go start a business. I did that 7-8 years ago. I tried to go be this consultant guy, and turns out nobody wants to hire a 22-year-old consultant. I can't even grow a mustache, never mind a business.
Right.
And having a little bit of street cred, at least I've proven that I can do a couple things and do some things well and stuff like that. I think that's really helped. And also growing a network, and people trust me, and that's where it came from, kind of the delusion side over to the confidence side. Like, yeah, we can do this.
So tell us about your company, Kestaa. What do you do? What problems are you solving?
So I do two things. One is I work one-on-one with companies as a contract consultant, kind of a hitman for problems within dirt companies. And then two, I put together peer groups, and I'll talk a little more about that as well. Mm-hmm. Everything that I'm doing so far is probably a product of the people that I know, people in my network, the network I've spent 15 years building. But everyone I know does some sort of dirt, utilities, landscaping, hardscaping, concrete. It's all kind of like pseudo-civil related, at least. And so when I talk about contractors and stuff, that's my world. People who pump septic systems, or people who put sidewalks in, or grade building pads or whatever. Obviously, people very much in your network.
Mm-hmm.
On the with the first offer and the first thing that I do, I work with small companies kind of under the $2-3 million mark, who the owner is very much involved in everyday operations of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've found is that repeatedly, companies in that range really don't have a good handle on their costs. So what does it cost to actually do these projects? And they don't have a handle on, or a system for tracking how those costs accrue throughout a project. So basically what does that mean? It means they bid a job, they do the job, they finish the job, they bid another job, and there's not learning that's happening on the financial side, at least, or on the operation side. There's not learning that's happening to make them better. They don't know how low they can bid, because they don't know how much it actually costs to go do these jobs. So some of the things that I'm helping contractors with right now, with one customer, trying to align and get all their information into one system, so that they can quickly estimate, and it's based on real costs. So we got to figure out, how much does this stuff cost? What does it actually cost you to put in? How many hours does it take? How much equipment time does it take? What is the material cost? And do you have subcontractors? Once we have that, then we can go price the job. And the point of knowing those is that so that you can bid with confidence, knowing how low you can bid the job. Like, you want to know how low you can go to be, many people might consider it being aggressive. I would say it's just being a good businessman, like being a good business person.
Sure.
Go know what your costs are, so that you can bid appropriately. And that's what I help with.
You identified a certain niche of like a certain size of customer. Is it partly that it's helpful to have a fresh set of eyes, because these customers are typically smaller, and so maybe they don't have large staff who can keep track on these kinds of things, and you have the owner who, is having to wear so many different hats that it's almost impossible for them to slow down and have a process to pay attention to these important items. And that's where it really you help with, is like that fresh set of eyes who's been experienced, who can come in and kind of help in that fractional capacity.
100%. I would say that, like, when you have when you're an owner of a company, or you senior management or whatever, and we're talking companies with 5, 10, 15 people, not monster firms by any means. Like, you, so much relies on you. So much comes back to you. Things on projects, things with vendors, things with customers. You got to go get work. And what gets ignored is everything else. All the stuff that, like, doesn't make your phone ring right then is the stuff that starts to get ignored. And so I consider myself as a hitman. It's like, let's go. I'll come in. I'll just work quietly on the side. We'll talk once a week or so. And then let's get you some answers. Let's get clear on this. Let's get your teams starting to document the right information on projects, so we know how many feet they put in. We know how much material they put in, and how much that costs. We can get those costs, and then let's figure out how to digest it. So that's my thing is, like, or the thing that I've identified is, like, just people, they're just busy doing other things that are, they're hotter fires, or they're screaming louder. And so all this stuff that is incredibly important but not urgent just gets put on the back burner, and then you watch months and months, or in some cases years, go by without actually dialing in what does this stuff actually cost to do.
Did you find that with you have a pretty diverse background? Is there a certain part of your experience that prepared you for what you do best? Like right now, is it, I think many times we learn from mistakes. Like, were there mistakes that you had a front row seat on, where you lived it? It's like, this is very formative, and this allows me to help in your current business.
So the first one is, I mentioned I work for a landscaping company. We did landscape installs. like a couple hundred a year. We would go around and follow new builders around, build new homes. We'd go in, put all the irrigation, landscaping, do rock walls, whatever. We were super small. I was like the second guy hired, and then we grew to 6 or 7 guys over the next year or two. And then one summer we just had this like backlog. It was just like, I can't believe how much work we have right now. Things are heating up. It's 2014, 15. Things are just getting warm, and we had lots to do. So I being the smart mogul that I am, I said, why don't we hire a bunch of people? So we went from 7 to 12 people or whatever for the summer season. And I know these are small numbers to probably a lot of people listening, but to us, like, you're still doubling the company size. So it doesn't matter what your company is. If you have 50 people, imagine going to 100. Right. You know, is the same principles apply, because we're just like simple people. I spent my days rolling out sod and digging irrigation pipe trenches. You know, we got done with that summer working. We kind of like wrapped things up in October, November. And I got time in the office again, and I start going through, what did we do? Kind of like once the dust is kind of settled. Turns out we had lost dramatically more money than we had ever lost, even though we did way more work. And it was like, okay, got it. Like, and what that meant practically is like, no Christmas bonus. And it's like, I see. What happened? And what I figured out was, it turns out just because you throw more manpower at a project doesn't mean that it's getting done any faster. We were missing all kinds of processes. We had no clue on our numbers, like what we were bidding projects for and how long they were taking us. We had no tracking for equipment, no tracking for our materials. And so I'm talking, when I say simple, like, and Alex, this is part of what's surprising about what I'm doing. Is it many times it is so simple, but it's not done. Like, it doesn't get done unless you purposely go and do it. And so amazingly, like, one of my customers just the other day, he told me like I think I can figure all this stuff out on my own, but just paying to have some help, have another set of eyes, and have skin in the game is helpful. And I'm like, Roger that, you know, that's good. What I've learned is what I'm learning, especially now as I'm seeing more of these companies, we're doing this again and again, is that it doesn't matter the software that you use, or do you use Google Sheets, or do you use a Google form, or do you use paper or whatever. That's inconsequential. It's almost irrelevant compared to what whether or not you actually track your costs on your projects. How you do it, that's a detail. We can figure that stuff out. But most people, especially under 3-4 million, some even much bigger than that, just don't track their costs, and so they don't know how to bid confidently.
One thing that I've always wanted to ask, this goes for the BuildWit crew, and you for what you're doing now. This industry, the people are notoriously, what's the right word? Resistant to change. I feel like there's a prevailing attitude of, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been doing this for 30 years. At BuildWit and what you're doing now, do you ever have to fight? What do you know? You're 30 years old. Like, it's incredibly impressive, the following that BuildWit has built. And, with you now going out and doing this, is that ever something you guys have had to fight and encounter?
It seems like there's two camps. There's the gray hairs and the people who would say, like, what do you know? And then there's this huge, like, groundswell of contractors that are either second, third, fourth generation, that are the youngsters, my peers, are now taking over for dad, taking over for grandpa. And it's like they have the lights on. It's like they realize they grew up in the same world I did. They realize how the internet has changed things. They realize what's happening to the workforce. They realize all these different things. Like, it's just not the same as it was 30 years ago. And that's that. The other side is there is many contractors that are, again, my peers from 20 years old to 40 years old, like younger folks who have started on their own and are just trying to figure it out. Like first generation, let's let her rip. And what I've found, even though I agree with you, like that is what the gray-haired group might say, I've found like an overwhelming number of people who are not in that camp at all. They're hungry to learn. I mentioned the peer groups earlier. Last week I was in Ohio with 8 different contractors. There wasn't a person in that room over 45 years old, and there wasn't a person in that room that was not hungry to change, hungry to do better, hungry to grow. And that's I have a list of probably 100 contractors or more that have reached out to me to get involved in these kinds of peer groups. Like that's no joke. That's a fair amount of people who are hungry, who want to grow and improve, you know? And so I would completely agree with you. The resistance to change exists. It's just probably not who I am talking to, not who is maybe interested in the stuff that I have to say. And so on that angle, it's actually been the opposite direction, where it's less about like, oh, what do you know? You're 30 years old. It's more so like people are now, in a weird way, people are looking to me for answers or asking me. They're calling me like, hey, how would you deal with this? And I'm like, you're the one running the $7 million contracting company, not me.
Yeah.
I'll do what I can. Here's another guy I know. You know, you can talk to him. Try to be useful.
That's interesting.
You know?
It's when you're starting a company, one of the most important exercises is to determine who your ideal customer is. You know, what is the profile of my ideal customer? It's something that it sounds simple, but it's a very important and can be difficult exercise, because your natural inclination is, hey, I have this great thing, I want to tell everyone about it, and it would help everyone, but you have to really be purposeful about narrowing it down to like, this is who is best for right now. Is that who your ideal customer is? Is like that new generation taking over that's younger? Is it the ones that are just starting something who need another set of eyes or some advice on how to get it set up in the right way? Who is your ideal customer?
So I've thought through this a lot, because I kind of have a few offers that span across different sizes of companies, but I've already kind of narrowed it down. So most of the people that I know are in, again, some kind of civil construction, concrete, something related to that. And then from there, I kind of have, like, I told you about the consulting that I do. That's for contractors doing probably less than 4 or 5 million a year. Most of my customers are in that range. There's one that's a little more than that, but you get the picture. And then I have a group that those people can join. They pay a monthly fee. We get together once a year. And again, what I'm trying to do is be the connector, be the guy who brings the community together. So that's kind of like for that size business. And then for the $4 to $12 million companies, like that's who I was with last week. They all, those are all great prospects, great customers for me. It was kind of half and half, maybe. Like there was several that are taking over from a second generation or third generation perspective, and then there's several that were starting from scratch or have started from scratch. And then the final group is $15 to $50 million. Again, construction, contracting, civil construction, and those I'm putting the group together. It'll be live and it'll be happening in July. I'm inviting just a small handful of guys, 6 or 7 contractors. We'll get together. So I don't know if revenue is exactly the right marker, but I think it is. If I had to nail it down, it's like people who are hungry to grow, either expand, like grow their market or grow their offerings, grow their people, that kind of thing, or just grow grow by how they're doing business, even if they're not scaling their revenue and scaling their team and all that stuff. Just growing and getting better.
What is your ultimate vision? Like, if we were to connect 5 years from now or 10 years from now, like what do you, looking back, this is where we're going. This is where I want to be.
You know, Alex, I have this whole thing has been a huge mission in finding out who I am and what I care about, where I'm best suited. Mm-hmm. And I've had a ton of anxiety or like imposter syndrome around, like I don't have 20 years as a pipe layer or as a superintendent or whatever. And I haven't grown a $100 million contracting company. And I would never claim that I know the stuff that those people know. What I do know is like I have a unique set of value and skills to bring to the table. And it's mostly that I'm really good at connecting people. Like I know, I look and I'm like, I know these hundreds of contractors and they call me and I call them and we have a great relationship. And then I know hundreds of vendors and people who serve contractors like yourselves. And I know all of them too. And then there's me. And it's like, how do I put that together into something that's useful for everyone involved? And so my grand vision, I've spent a lot of time trying to be a big visionary and trying to think out 10 years and 20 years and stuff. And then you have a preemie baby and you have a stroke and all in your life just goes to pot for a while. And it's like, okay, well, I have no idea. But if this is working really well, what I'm able to do is use my skills and use my ability and use talent and what I already have and grow it and connect really good contractors with more really good contractors and connect great solutions and vendors and kind of what's up and coming to great contractors and help them solve their problems. I'm the connector. So in 5 years or 10 years, I could definitely see more of these groups going. I could definitely see people getting together, especially in today's world where more and more is on the internet, more and more is it's almost like we're getting distance from each other rather than spending time with each other. And I watched last week, I spent 2 days watching the magic happen in the hallway conversations and over breakfast, these guys talking about sharing different ideas. And it's like, if I could expand just that and do more of that, then I've done my job. And it's a strange place to be. It's not really the role that I was expecting to take, but I think it's the one that I'm best suited for and can bring the most value to people. And that's my aim.
Yeah, I think there is something to that where there's more things out there. The access is greater than ever, and so it can become, there's a lot of pollution. So if you can bring genuine connection, I think there's a huge value proposition to that. Has anything surprised you since you started your own thing? Something that you look back, you're like, I did not think that this was going to happen, or I did not foresee this evolving the way it did. Yes. I got a phone call maybe a month after I started, and I kind of like eased into it. You know, we were in the hospital and stuff. I was like, I'm going to start, but pretty low grade, like we'll just get rolling. And I got a call about a month in from my friend Matt out on the East Coast, and Matt runs a small excavation company. They're growing, and he's got some challenges like anybody else. And he called me and said, "Hey, what do you think about putting together peer groups? Like, I want to get together with contractors. I want to learn from them. I want to see what other people are doing, but I run an excavation company. This is not what I do. What do you think about this?" And I'm like, I don't know. Let's see. So I put a post on the internet, on LinkedIn and Instagram and whatever, saying, "Hey, I'm considering doing this peer group. Here's how it would work. It's broken out by bracket. So if you're under 3 million, this is what you get. If you're 4 to 12, this is what you get. 15 plus, this is what you get." That kind of thing.
that absolutely blew my mind. The response to that was like a tsunami. So I was not expecting it at all. I thought, you get a couple guys interested and then you put something together and there you go. I followed that up the next day, like almost surprised or like with a shocked look on my face, like, hey, okay, there's a lot more interest in this than I was thinking. Please fill out this survey if you want to be involved. And 63 contractors filled out the survey in the first like couple days.
Wow.
And these are 63 different contractors who are answering very specific questions about how would this be formed? How would this look? How many people? How expensive is it? How often would you be willing to travel? Like, it's a full-blown deal. And I had all these people and then probably another 40 or 50 who were in my DMs and didn't end up filling out the survey or whatever, but were interested. And that like has blown me away. And so since March, April, I've been like, okay, roger that. We're going in this direction. People are asking for this. Now, how do I get good at putting this together and really doing something of value for these people? So that's what I'm working on now. But that's been a to say it's a shock is an understatement. I was not expecting that at all. I'm very grateful, but it was it was super surprising.
Interesting. Do you have a fear? Like, do you have a big fear over the business? Is there anything that keeps you up at night?
I'm like literally speaking, I'm a great sleeper, so not necessarily anything that keeps me up at night. But my fear, my number one fear is, I've been involved in projects that have not gone well because we didn't deliver what we said we would deliver. We made a promise up front and then went back a year later and I sat in somebody's office and had to apologize for taking their money. And that freaks me out. I would rather be a garbage collector or work as a cashier than sell stuff that people don't get a ton of value out of. Obviously, we all learn. We all have, we make mistakes. We do all this. Like that's a foregone conclusion. But if I'm scared of anything, it's that I'm gonna sell stuff I know I'm capable of selling. But it's now backing that up with delivery, with doing the thing that I'm selling. If I have any fear at all, it's that I just want to make sure that that's dialed in.
Sure, that your customers get the value that they're choosing to take that leap to hire you for.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So you have like I mentioned before, like such a diverse background in the industry. One of like the big topics that is at the forefront is the labor shortage, is people not necessarily wanting to get into the industry. I think you're a perfect person to talk about that. Like, your background is what everyone seems to be focused on. Is I assume that you didn't go to college, because you mentioned that 17 you were just signing up at a Bobcat dealer. What are your overall thoughts on just how that changes? How more people find their way into the blue collar and the trades.
So I've had a front row seat in a lot of these conversations. You were at the Dirt World Summit last year. You heard a lot of these conversations. And I suppose in some ways it's like it's just my lens, because I associate myself and surround myself with people who think like I do, or are thinking in this direction over here, like, let's solve this stuff. And I don't interact a ton with people who are stuck in the mud and old guard kind of stuff. I'm extremely optimistic. I'm extremely optimistic about this. I don't buy the. There's plenty of people who use the stats as a weapon in order to sell their own stuff. Like, this many people are going to retire and this and that, and I understand it, but I also am optimistic in spite of the the statistics, I'm optimistic that we can move things forward. And the reason I am is because I have seen, like last week, I one of the companies there, like they have 20 or 30 guys or whatever. We went out on a job site, saw their guys. I personally talked with a bunch of their guys. They're just fired up. They're just good to go. And they're standing on a paver. And they were like, you just felt like they got it, like they wanted to be there. And I have seen that repeated over and over and over again. I do think we need people crying from the rooftops. I think we need people with a lot of influence, and we need people like the Aaron Witts of the world to be talking about how to solve this, like 100%. It gets solved one person, one company, one day, one job site at a time. And my only fear is that everyone's going to feel like they need to go fix the problem for the whole industry, when in fact, if you own a dirt company or you own a septic pumping business, like you probably only need like 2 people or 7 people or 15 people. You can do that. You fix your own culture, make it a place that people actually want to work, and you can pull people from all sorts of different industries and places, and they can come in and be amazing at running a paver, or amazing project managers, or amazing estimators, amazing pipe layers. But you're not going to solve it for the whole industry, but solve it for you.
Yeah. It's interesting. I admire, and I think that's an important piece that BuildWit is playing, is just telling the stories. Because I think one of the things that obviously people pursue is fulfillment. And so many of the office jobs that you get into are very unfulfilling. And so I do resonate with the one company, one job at a time. It's an important piece to tell the story, like to put a spotlight on the importance that these companies and the industry as a whole plays in our society.
Completely agree. I think we need both. We need people. We need people shouting from the rooftops, but we also need a foreman in Ohio to treat his people well, so that they don't quit, so they can stay on the crew.
Absolutely. One of the things that I enjoy following with your journey is the ultra marathons. I am not a runner by any means, so it's something that is inspiring. Have you always been an ultra marathon runner? Has that been part of your background since you were younger?
I think I did my first ultra 3 years ago. So no, I've always been kind of more of a runner, definitely more of a runner than a lifter. But yeah, I've done some marathons and things, and lots of 5Ks and lots of half marathons and whatever. But I really didn't do any ultras until 2 or 3 years ago, and then I did one, and I was like, hey, this is pretty rad. It's like I ran 50 miles in the Grand Canyon in one day. It's like 17 hours of get her done, and got done with that, and I was like, unbelievably sore. Never been that sore in my whole life, not even close. But did it, and that was like an unlock or a leveling up, I guess. Like, hey, if I can do this, what else can I do? So that's been.
Is that fun. What drives it? Is it the like pushing yourself to see what you can accomplish? Is that at the core of it?
100%. 100%. I suppose I'm probably competitive by nature. Like right now, for example, last night, a bunch of us, there's 12 of us on this Hood to Coast team. So every year in August, we go run from Mount Hood to the beach, 200 miles. It's like 24 hours of racing. You run 3 separate legs, 5 or 6 hours apart. You run 5 miles at a dead sprint, like as fast as you possibly can. You get back in the van, you drive, you try to recover, So our team is always kind of like, by June, July, we start training and then go run in August and whatever. This year, a little different. We're like all in. We had to pluck a few people from the team. We added a few more super fast guys, and we're gonna try to place. We're gonna try to do really well with it. And for context, like there's plenty of teams that'll be faster than us, but like if we can get top 30 out of 1,200 teams, we'd be pretty stoked. And that's like probably a 6:30, 6:40 pace overall would be fabulous. So believe me, there's plenty of people who are faster. It's amazing. But the point is, we do these training runs every couple times a week. We last night we went and did 6 or 7 miles, and like I'm competitive enough where like I want to win at the training runs. Like we're all running as fast as we can. I would like to win, and I'm not good with like being the guy in the back, but especially with ultras, it's not like my deep, not some kind of deep insecurity or whatever. Like it really does turn into, when you're out there for 20 hours, it's like, this is just me versus me here. And that's it.
So, I mean, this is probably a dumb question, but do you have joy when you're running an ultra? You're running 50 miles? Like, is there, or is it just solely like, hey, I'm just trying to push my limits. This is suffering. I'm just trying to get through it. Like, are you happy when you're doing it? Is it something you enjoy doing?
Yeah, I am. Again, I'm probably an optimist by nature. Like, so maybe not everybody's like this, but like I genuinely really, really enjoy it. And it's crazy. Go down the Grand Canyon. You ever been? Like, have you been to the Grand Canyon?
No, I have not.
Okay. You and me, we got to go on a trip. I'll take you to St. George. We'll go to the Grand Canyon. It's going to be awesome. Okay. So you go down and it's just like stupid, amazing, just so beautiful. And it's just very, very enjoyable. But there's also plenty of time where it's like we're trying to sprint out of this thing, and it's just hard, and it's gonna be hard for several hours. It's gonna be quite difficult, So no, I'm not a masochist. I'm not like it's not like I'm just standing around trying to find stuff that'll hurt me. I do really, really enjoy it, but I also think there's probably some joy in like finding out what you're capable of, even if you're not like grinning ear to ear while you're finding it out. Yeah. There's like some fulfillment in that.
Well, and the discipline required and the testing of yourself. I mean, it I'm sure has a lot of positive carryover to the business side. You had 100%. Briefly mentioned, I don't know if everyone picked up on it, but having 7 children, that's the other thing that blows me is how do you have time to, with the family, the business, to pick up, to put on shoes and go for a 20-mile run? Your wife allows this?
I don't do a ton of long runs right now in this season. It really is like a seasonal thing. And obviously we just came through, I shared my whole story. Like I've not done long runs. I haven't done an ultra in 7-8 months or whatever, and ran one marathon. But just like a lot of my runs, like this morning, I went out early before everyone was up and I ran 3-4 miles and came back to the house, and that's, check the box, got the job done. So that's what a lot of it is right now. One day we'll get it back.
Early mornings are the best.
Yep.
So you're all healed up, like no lingering issues from the stroke or the heart. Like you can get out and run 3-4 miles and doesn't hamper you.
Yeah, it's crazy. I expected more. And like the first month was a little difficult, but they didn't cut me open. They basically they made 2 incisions in my kind of leg groin area. They put a camera up one vessel, and they put like a little device up the other, and they stuck the device in the hole in my heart. And then over time, the heart will grow in around the basically little plastic or neoprene or whatever device that they put in. Never felt a single thing in my heart, nothing. It was just like they cut 2 big holes. So those had to heal up, and it was kind of hard to walk for a week or 2. But otherwise, yeah. And the doctors were like, yeah, just go do your thing. Like, let us know if something's feels off, but otherwise you're good. I'm like, Roger that.
Very cool. I have one last question that's unrelated to anything. We're fortunate we're going to have Aaron Witt on, and you know him probably as well as anybody. I don't know him that well. I know of him. Give me some insight on something I should ask him that would be a good rabbit hole to go down.
Ask him about what daily exercise has done for his business.
Okay.
The reason I say that is,
time.
and he'll share more. He's very quiet about this. Every once in a while he'll post something, but he was a huge influence on me when it was even before I started working for him. I flew to Nashville, and we did this challenge, this David Goggins challenge, the 4x4x48. So you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly hard, actually. Like, give it a try one time. It's something sort of different. We did that. I stayed at his house. We went out, and 2 o'clock in the morning. The second morning, you wake up and go after sleeping for 2 hours. You go out and sweat for 4 miles. Yep. It's like it's a rough gig. I remember on one of the runs or whatever, we spent the whole weekend together. On one of the runs, I asked him, we were kind of chatting or whatever, and I asked him about working out or running or whatever, and he casually mentioned, he's like, yeah, I haven't missed a day in 2 years at the time or something like that. I'm like, okay, so what do you mean by haven't missed a day? And he just kind of low key smiled. He's like, yeah, I haven't missed a day. And this is 5 years plus now since then, or 3 years since then. He's 5 years deep and hasn't missed a single day in 5 years.
Oof.
And it was right around that same time my streak started, and it's been 3 years for me. Like, he'll always be a few years ahead of me, but I'd be interested to hear if he would open up a little bit about it and talk about how that has influenced what happens in business and in life. Because what I've noticed is it transfers. It's like you take confidence, right? We're talking about discipline, doing it when you don't feel like it. If I've worked out 1,000 days, 400 or 500 of the days, I didn't feel like doing it at all. And it was 11 o'clock at night, or it was raining or snowing or icy, or it was 109 degrees. I've been through all that and still gone for my 5K or still lifted for a little bit or whatever. And I know he's done the exact same thing. So I'd be curious to hear, and would recommend you ask him about that. Like, what is
I will do that.
Fitness
I appreciate
discipline
that.
taught him about business.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you very much coming on, telling your story. I have been in your shoes. I am still in your shoes. Not that I've been it, but really enjoyed hearing your journey, and I wish you the best of success with the new company.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate you giving me opportunity and reaching out and making this happen. It's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks very much.